So I left. I now work for Cobalt Light Systems, and John works for me, and we're going to talk about how to make attractive user interfaces in LabVIEW with HTML. So we're part of CSlug, the Central South LabVIEW user group. We've been members for many years. And I have changed the forum, so I couldn't find the image. I had to Google it. Whilst I was there, we actually found one of Paul Hollywood saying things will definitely go wrong, which I felt kind of matched the whole CSlug thing.
Yeah, we got sued for that image.
Ah.
So you had to change it.
Oh, okay. Oh well. Professional, you see.
It's a scam.
Right, so Cobalt and why we did this. So we're going to go through several things. Why we did it, what's wrong with LabVIEW graphics. This is going to be a very brief section. Don't all chime in. Why we chose WebKit, how we did it. We're going to do some demos. John's going to cover some of the gotchas that he found and some of these tips for getting past and developing better interfaces. So Cobalt, we make stuff for end users. So we do it for pharmaceutical people. They are scientists and engineers, but they don't code in LabVIEW. So they don't expect the LabVIEW user interface. They could be, so we do pharmaceutical, so they're scanning stuff coming in. They are checking tablets. Airport security, you may have seen our machines in one of the 65 airports around the world that we're in. We scan bottles and make sure that there's no explosives in them. So again, the level of operator here isn't particularly high, and this year we launched our handheld device. And this is kind of where this came in, because this is our user interface. This is all done in LabVIEW. We sat down with some UX experts and they said, yes, this is how you should do it. And we've picked this font because when you put it down, you're actually looking at it at an angle and it foreshortens the text and means you can fit longer names on the screen. There's all sorts of stuff. But most of this is just straight LabVIEW. There's some icons, there's some text, we've picked a font. This is just a ring control. There's nothing particularly difficult in here until you start getting to some more complex screens. So here we scan some TNT, 2,4,6-toluene, if you're one of the chemists. We have our GHS symbols here telling us that it's explosive, if you didn't know. It's environmentally damaging, it's hazardous to health, and I've actually forgotten what that one is.
It's a pyro. Poisonous.
This scrolls round, this moves up and down. Then we get to the complicated section where we scroll around to all. This shrinks, this grows. This is all done in LabVIEW. This really, really hurts trying to do all of this in LabVIEW. These are actually sub-panels and they grow and there's communications all over the place. But it could be done, and then they go in and there's a graph. Graphs are easy. We like graphs. And then they wanted more information, so we've got the GHS symbols again, and this scrolls up and down, and it goes round and round, and there's text, and there's all sorts of stuff. And LabVIEW just doesn't feel right for this, because this is actually one of those pages, and we've got data, and we've got the chemical names, and I've got lots of text, and some of the alternate names go on for pages and pages and pages. You've got funny formatting for molecular formulas. We go and get different chemical structures and they obviously change in size. Mixing and matching this, well, LabVIEW isn't wonderful. It's very hard to mix text and graphics, especially if you want them to scroll. So I started trying to use splitters, and as I say, they hurt my head. For those of you who haven't used splitters, this one went in first, and it breaks it up into this section of the page, and this section, and then this one, and then one of these. So this is pane 1, this becomes pane 2, and it's 3, then it could be 4 or 4. You have to figure it out, and as soon as you move one of those splitters, if you get it wrong, that's a bad fatal error, because if you move one up to 0, that's it. LabVIEW says, no, you can't do that, that's an error, throw it all out the window. And when I'm dealing with changing text lengths and picture sizes, and you've got to scroll and you've got to have a position on that page, it gets hard. There's got to be a better way. And there is, it's HTML. It's kind of what it's for. So the text sizes are changed here, but I could have done this in a multi-column list box, but then I certainly couldn't have put that in there. I couldn't have done the formatting here. I'd have had to start trying to put in text boxes and align them, and then I can't generate them on the fly, and it gets trickier and trickier. And putting in the graphics, it wasn't going to happen. It's a handheld instrument, it's a pretty small screen. You've got to scroll up and down, so we had to use HTML. That's what it was for. So NI has an offering for this. So I go back. So what we've done, we've got HTML, and it's actually wrapped with CSS. Just so those of you who are more LabVIEW than web technology, which was me a while ago. You've got HTML, which gives me the structure for everything. And then I wrapper it in CSS so it comes pretty, and this is a list, and it's actually a table. This spans 2 columns, and I give it a class, and then I can say it's going to be formatted in this particular way. So that's what the CSS bit does. So LabVIEW has a way of doing this. It's Activex and .NET versions of Internet Explorer. It runs IE6. Apparently you can do some jiggery pokery in the registry and maybe get it to run a later version of Internet Explorer. We also run on Windows Embedded 7. And that just, yeah, I would spend many late nights scratching my head, not swearing, not at all, at trying to get this to display the particular font that we wanted. We picked a specific font that was free, of course, and available both in the TrueType and in a web font. IE6 and web fonts was just horrendous. I would test it on my machine, downgraded my Internet Explorer. It's like, yes, it works. I've configured everything correctly, put it on the unit. No, not happening. And it would pick some horrible Arial style wide font, and it stood out like a sore thumb. It wasn't coping very well with the CSS that we wanted, as basic as it was going to be. It meant it didn't fit. This was just not an option. So again, there has to be a better way than Internet Explorer. So I went to Google, because they have lots of the answers, and it was actually on the forums I found the answer. A gentleman called Sam Sharp, who's actually from the UK.
No.
Not here today. Okay. Talking about how you embedded Chrome, and no, you can't embed Chrome. What you can do is embed WebKit, which is the technology behind Safari and Firefox. Yes, let's do this. So that's what we did. So it's in a .NET assembly. We're able to embed it in. Just drop down .NET assembly. Yeah, pick that one. You tell the WebKit to load a page, which is navigate, just like it is with Internet Explorer, except that's navigate 2. So you gave it a page. You could tell it to move up or down, because I'm not using a mouse, I've got separate buttons and I want to move up and down. So I told it to run some JavaScript. So I gave it some JavaScript, and then I found out you had to update the page afterwards. Otherwise nothing happened. That was disappointing. Get the size of it, because we have a scroll bar by the side, so I can figure out how much is showing, how much of page is, do some simple maths, and I've got my scroll bar. And get my page position within the WebKit, update it, wait, always wait, doesn't update straight away. Find out things like the height, and go and get information off the page. So again, I was getting information back out of the page. I can tell it to run stuff, or I can go and read part of the page to go and get that information. So that gave us the technical reasons, and those. There are actually other business reasons, just before we get to the demo. We deal with pharma companies. They are very, very particular in their wording. These are actually two of the bugs that were on our system at the time I presented this. We fixed them now. The scores listed in the build model training screen differ from the score present in the print spectrum. It's a rounding issue. We have to calculate what the average is of 5 values. We list the 5 values and show them to 3 decimal places. We calculate the average and display it to 3 decimal places. But because the average that is shown on the report is not what I can calculate from the numbers also shown on the report, it's wrong. It's a rounding issue. Pharma companies do not like this. But yes, but the numbers have come from somewhere else. And no, I can't recreate those numbers from what you've given me. This is wrong. You can have this argument as long as you like. You're wrong. It's just the way it comes out. So this is why we're going to go to this. We can utilise this technology to display our reports and then just print them. Going through this issue for the report on screen and then again for the PDF that we produce later on means that we have twice as many opportunities to be wrong. And we normally find out through QA that we were twice as wrong as we thought we were. So we're going to this technology because this allows us to do it once and only be wrong once and have exactly the same printout. Also, we aren't graphic designers. We've kind of looked around. UI designers that know LabVIEW are very, very, very few and far between. UI designers that know HTML, well, just go and take your pick. They're everywhere. Everybody has this skill set, and there's all ways of producing this information. Proliferates Google. You try and find out how to produce something graphical within LabVIEW. You're on the forums, that's pretty much it. Whereas if you go and try and find out how to do something with HTML and CSS, the world's your oyster. Everybody has this information. So we can control our page from LabVIEW, we can move it up and down, we can get information, but we're always polling it for information. And that didn't feel quite right for moving forward, so I tasked John with finding out how to get LabVIEW to be told stuff from WebKit. John's going to do us a demo of what he made.
So this is a very simple demo, and it definitely shows that I'm not a graphic designer. But the idea is just to give you an idea of what you can do, and then you can go from there.
But he does know LabVIEW, proving my point entirely.
So I think if we look at the block diagram first, this is a very simple.
John.
That is very simple.
It is a very simple demo. What have you done to this now? Let's have a look at that whole screen. So all we're doing is we've got a selector, and an enum selector, and we're going to select one of 4 HTML files. The HTML files are basically the same, except they call a different CSS file or no CSS file. Other things we've got.
Just talk it through.
Yeah, so we've got. You can disable the right click on the front panel. So normally that would reload your HTML code. You might want that when you're doing the developing, as if you make changes in the CSS or the HTML, LabVIEW caches the HTML shown and might not reflect the changes that you've made to your code in your HTML or CSS code, so you need to refresh. You can see where it's Mike showed before, where we load the HTML.
So that's there.
Yeah, and we've got the bit of magic, which is this part here, which is the registered event callback. I'll go through that in a bit once we've just seen the demo. So all we've got is a dialog with 2 buttons. So we can show you that. Use that to the other screen. Scroll it over a bit. I should make this bigger. So first of all, we've got no CSS, which almost looks like like a LabVIEW dialog box, to be honest. So I'm sorry it's that small, but so we've just got two buttons, OK and cancel. So we press OK, you can see it's ended, and button pressed is OK. Now there is a problem in tracking, getting the callback from which button you've pressed. So the workaround is actually to, when you press the button, in the HTML code, there's a bit of JavaScript which basically writes which button you've pressed to a text position which is off screen, and then we can that's very easy to read in HTML and and bring it back into LabVIEW. So that's how we read back things from the web browser kit. So we've got a few. It's the same. So there's no change in LabVIEW code, and there's not really any change in the HTML code. It is just in the CSS code that's been thinking. I do apologise if you're colourblind or you're sensitive to colours, because some of them are a bit horrible. So you can change the text, just anything you can do in CSS really. These aren't meant to be beautiful, just to show you really an idea that you can change things. So yeah, you can have the sort. So again, you can change it whatever you want. So the idea was you could skin something, so you could actually change the. You can change the appearance of it without actually changing any of your underlying LabVIEW code. So you can do this all in HTML and CSS. Okay. Right. I think now we go back to the.
Okay, so we found a few gotchas.
Yes, so there are a few gotchas. One thing being is that normally you use your HTML code for online things. So any graphics or anything that you need to get that are in the package are usually pulled from the servers online. Of course, you might be using this offline. So you just have to obviously include the whole package from WebKit, and then in your CSS file actually kind of hard code a path to those images so you can actually get those images and use them on your front panels. And the biggest, the oddest thing is the .NET Callbacks, because if you've not used .NET Callbacks, they're just
An experience.
An experience, yes. And it was an experience to go back and recreate them for this presentation, but I hadn't done it for about 2 months, so I did actually remember how to do it. So, first of all,
are you going to do this live? Or are you going to run through it on?
I was just going to run through it on here.
Okay.
Call me a coward.
I think you should do it.
I should have made a video.
Yeah.
So, on the palette there is a registered event callback node. So that's the top one. If you can look at pointy stick. Oh yeah, you've got a pointy stick. You then connect your web browser to the event. It's the event node, isn't it? So then you get, then you can. This will drop down, and you can choose what you want to do now. Because you can't get the callback from which button you've pressed. We just make when we press a button, we basically force it to try and navigate somewhere, but there is nowhere for it to navigate. So that the dialog box will just say, oh, I'm trying to navigate. So that's what we're getting the callback on.
So normally in HTML, you press a button, it's going to take you to a reference. So you put in A equals href, and then that gives you your URL that you're going to go to. We doctor the URL and put in something rubbish at the beginning, like CLS for Cobalt Light Systems, and then we can pick that up. But we then needed to make sure that we were navigating to it, because we get that at the start of the process as opposed to page completed, because it doesn't load the page because it's a rubbish URL. So again, it's one of those little.
So next, you basically have to create your user event, which is this down here. So basically, we've just got an action, an enum with an action of click, and a variant so that we've got some data. So we create that event, connect it to our user parameter, and then this is the oddest bit, it's the VI reference. So you click right on that and you create the VI reference. You then have to go into the VI reference and you will see what you've got on the left. So you've got some common data, you've got a control reference, event data and user parameter. You then effectively wire them to create a user event and generate user event, and that's it. But it is very difficult if you have never done that before, or there are some, I think there is a tutorial on the NI site.
Callbacks are used for something else, aren't they? They do express VIs or something like that, use callbacks.
They can do Activex. You can do Activex callbacks.
Yeah.
So what they are is effectively the control that we're talking to is firing up and going, you need to do something, and what we're doing is we're registering this VI to go and do whatever it is that. And if you get very, very into LabVIEW, you can actually do those on the board and things like that, the messages, so that you could, in theory, clean up after your code.
So if you're switching between different pages, you're loading the different pages in your LabVIEW event structure, not in it, so you're just using HTML to display stuff.
To display
formatting, so all the logic is still going on.
All the logic is still in LabVIEW, and we can pick and choose. So you've got some stuff like graphs, LabVIEW does really well.
Yeah.
HTML sucks at that.
So you just
So you pick and choose what you need to do the right thing.
So one of the gotchas is the fact that once you've run the code and you go in and look at your callback event that we've just .NET that we've just created, it will still be running even though your program has stopped. And this has got there is a car against this, and previous to 2013 apparently it didn't happen. It would kill the .NET callback event, but since 2013 you have to do this, which is basically create this property node, a vote node, which is just select the class .NET, and then you look at, actually it's so there is a car against this. It's MS call lib 4.0.0.0 assembly, and then you select GC class, and if you run that, it will actually kill your event callback, and then you can actually edit it. You can close the program and it won't say I'm still running, but it just sort of stays in the background. So
System.gc is a Windows.
Yeah, it's actually
Yes.
the garbage collection class.
So they unreserve the callback VI. Right, now you've seen all the ugly stuff. Oh, right, you're going to go to that
What,
first.
you want to see the? You want to do the pretty stuff?
I'm going to do the pretty stuff. Yeah, do the pretty one. Now this isn't. This is only in. Only in HTML. It's not in LabVIEW. But I have got the same thing working in LabVIEW. Someone might recognise the screen.
So just to summarise, the WebKit is a .NET container
.NET
that you can
assembly
stick
that you can download, freely distributable.
Yeah. You can stick it on your front panel.
Yep.
So this was using a Jquery library. So I've got an accordion, got some text. We're off the edge of the screen, aren't we? You can't tell that now.
Oh, it's not a lot I can do about that. You're off the edge of the screen.
Yeah. So there are tick boxes here as well. You can tick. So basically, this is using a pre-compiled library, just to give you some smarter graphical effects rather than just using the sort of basic HTML, CSS.
When you were showing the demo before with the OK and cancel,
Yeah.
you were returning just a single text string
Yeah.
to know which button was pressed.
Yeah.
Can you return like all that data in one chunk via an event callback?
Yes, I do. Yes, you can. Yeah, I've got in my LabVIEW version of that. I'm getting all that data and I'm writing it to a database. So yeah, you can. Yeah.
So in your LabVIEW version of that, can you post information to that?
Yes, you can. So you can either do it in
text is all posted.
Yeah, so normally on the version, some of the titles, some of the prerequisites, actually in this version it's this here because this is telling you what the conditions are and it goes through. So yeah, you can write things to it. So I've got it running in a loop and I'm actually sending messages to the loop, which is then configuring the dialogue and hiding it and showing it, fading it in, fading it out. The only problem I found with the checkboxes is instead of just being able to reconfigure the checkboxes, you actually need to reload the page every single time for it to actually go to a known state, otherwise it goes off into it doesn't update, even though you tell it you want to be blank again, it comes back with, which I think is more to do with HTML than that report. So yeah, you can do. There's quite a lot of things you can do.
Just the fact that you're so heavily reliant on .NET doesn't mean it's Windows only.
No, because it's the same as what's used on Safari. So there are.
Yeah, the WebKit
Well,
is.
you use Activex and.
Well, I don't know how you would do this in LabVIEW on Windows or Linux, but WebKit is available for those
yeah,
platforms.
WebKit
But
.NET, well.
Depends on the container, really, isn't it? If
Yeah,
you've got
I know.
I don't know what containers you get for Linux and
no.
not many, I think.
And one useful thing when you are, especially if you're not, I mean, I've done some HTML in the past, but really only producing reports that customers can read. They like HTML reports because they don't need a copy of Word or whatever to read. So, but there is this is Chrome, and the developer tools in Chrome are very useful when you're trying to debug these type of things, because you know you've got your base HTML, you've got your CSS, and you may be using another jQuery library which has got its own settings, and when you're trying to overwrite those settings and know what is actually, so you can go in and you can inspect items, and it'll tell you actually what the settings for that are, which ones are being overwritten. So it really does help. I mean, you could use a HTML development package. You know, I'm trying to think of some of the brands there are out there that we don't really use it. But it just helps. You can really see where the code is coming from and what's affecting how it looks like.
At work, we're forced to use Internet Explorer, but you've got exactly the same tools in there as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's really useful because you don't really want to be debugging. You only want to be debugging LabVIEW programs, the LabVIEW problems in LabVIEW. So really, the HTML stuff you want to try and do as much as possible outside of that environment, really.
Yeah, code. Yeah, writing LabVIEW code that generates JavaScript and HTML and gets displayed is just too far down the rabbit hole at that point. You want to keep the language you're debugging in the right environment.
Right, so I've shown you Chrome Developer Mode. There's obviously w3schools.com if you want to learn something, or W3 Fools as some critics call it. As Mike said, there's just so much stuff out there for web development. You know, compared to LabVIEW, say LabVIEW's got the forum, which is great, but we've done stuff like with MySQL, and you know, you're constantly on Stack Overflow and things like that. Stack Overflow for LabVIEW is not really.
700 posts on there, I think.
Yeah, but whereas compared to the forum is probably
millions.
I think that's the inherent advantage of using the right thing for the job.
Yes.
If it's all for the job, it'll get help.
You guys ever looked at something called Selenium?
Yeah, the web tester.
Yeah, use, yeah, I'm trying to use it to remove some different buttons on the web page. You need that to return where
Yeah, it's mainly intended as a test platform so that you can test your web. I've looked at it, tried to get it to work with LabVIEW, not very successfully. But yeah, to work on web pages, again, it's just an established test technique for doing that.
So another thing we used on that accordion and checkbox demonstration, we used Jquery Ui. Actually, some of it is Jquery Mobile, which is especially for sort of phones, so it's sort of designed around touchscreen. So this allows you to put some very flashy controls on without really having to do the hard work yourself. The Jquery website is very good because you can actually, the kind of CSS stuff, you can make your own changes in there and produce a CSS, so you can round corners, change colour schemes, and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff on the Jquery and the Jquery site, and there's the UI, there's the mobile, and there's a, I think it's, I'm not sure it's called Canvas or something. But yeah.
Well, we've included some links of stuff that we found useful, so this is where you can go and get WebKit, the Jquery site, and the W3 School stuff. And there's loads of stuff, and you get to try it out online, which means you get instant feedback, which is kind of what you're used to with LabVIEW. You try it, yes it works, yeah, excellent, no it doesn't. You get your instant feedback that way as well. Are there any questions?
If you were to make a graph, say actually in the HTML site, say you did JavaScript or whatever, what's it like performance-wise in terms of streaming data? You have to reload the page every...
No. So we never you reload the page when you bring the dialogue in. But other than that, it's the same page, and we're actually writing. So using JavaScript, you can actually update elements. So you update the inner HTML of a particular element to whatever you will need it to be. I wouldn't use it for graphs. Graphs are too easy to do in LabVIEW. And because this is just a .NET control, I can shape it around. What you can't do is put stuff over it. So I can't put a transparent graph over the top of a .NET control. That doesn't work. No matter how hard you try it, that doesn't work.
If you are interested in doing graphs in HTML such as JavaScript, there's a library called D3, which stands for Data-Driven Documents. It's like open source and free.
Yeah, we kind of stopped. We know there's further you can go with things like D3 and Angular, but we're where we need to be.
Just wondered how you worked with the UX designers. Like, did they provide you like a custom CSS style sheet? Is that
They actually provide us a Flash deliverable. So I have on my machine, I have a Flash animation. I was able to control it and say yes, you press these buttons. We actually then developed that further, and put it on the little computer, and I developed with LabVIEW DAC device something to query our little touchpad of 7 buttons, and got that to generate Windows buttons. So you got to grips with it sooner. So then we just sat down. We went through 6 weeks of constant meetings. It felt like it was every 3 days we had a meeting with them. Refined, but we didn't start in anything. We actually started with post-it notes on the wall. What do you want to see on the page? How do you get there? What's vital information? What's everything? What do you actually need to see? It was very, very good.
So the Flash thing that they did with them, that you used that as a sort of model that you could then
I was able
sort of
to
translate into HTML and CSS.
Well, that actually translated mostly into LabVIEW, but it was just the final stage where I was getting stuck on mixing the graphics and the text and scrolling. Unless we were already scrolling things up, down, left, right, growing, shrinking, I can't keep up with this rate of development.
So did they work with you sort of in your team, or was it quite separate?
And I worked with them on creating the design and saying, "Oh, don't do that. That's ridiculous. I'll never do that." To yeah, okay, we can, yes, you can carry on with that. But then at the end of every meeting, we would get the flash, and I would get to go away and create a new page.
So, two other routes you could have gone is you could have rendered the user interface into a feature control,
Yes.
or you could have served out the entire user interface via LabVIEW's built-in web server and not embedded WebKit.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering why you didn't go with either of those options.
Right. So the picture control, yes, but getting that to update fluidly, and I still have to write everything to manage the growing and the shrinking and changing sizes. And I'm still stuck with that problem if I just publish the web interface. The reason for going this route is there are tools there that do it for me in HTML and CSS. I'm just leveraging those tools. We've just found a way to bring them into LabVIEW so that they still work and don't just freeze up on E6.
About the web server.
Sorry?
What about the web server?
With the web server, I still need to do everything in LabVIEW. I still need to grow everything and shrink it. And then I'm struggling with the fact that there's bandwidth. I don't gain any of the benefits. I gain actually even worse performance and more
What
work.
is your target platform? What sort of system is it? Is
Um,
it Windows embedded? Or?
So the small system we have is Windows embedded.
Okay.
So again, you're limited on what the capabilities of Internet Explorer under there. But for the stuff that John was showing
You
with you,
can't run WebKit on your target device.
yes, we
You
are.
can.
We are. So we've done that. But for the stuff that John's been working on, we're actually running that on just on a standard Windows laptop.
Is it an ARM device or what sort of processor?
No, it's an x86. It's a ComExpress.
Yeah, last year you gave a similar presentation. Was that all done in LabVIEW, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly?
Yeah,
And
it was
you've
just
changed since then.
no. So that's all still done in LabVIEW. But what we've done is we've taken the WebKit. There was one small page in there that was done in WebKit, and we've now developed that further, and thought that that was probably worth talking about in its own right of how people can get that in.
That particular example code, any reason we can't nick it?
What the LabVIEw bit?
Just the
Yeah.
dialogue, I think the dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Dialogue
no, that's
is
fine.
like
Yeah,
a
no,
nice
Another example.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I can. That's fine. There's nothing
There's nothing.
clever in that, you know. But it's useful as a
It's
starting
nice,
point.
it's nice
Yes.
that it goes with the presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we can make that available. That's not a problem.
Right, what's the reason for not getting users to open Internet Explorer window on the device and just use TCP to communicate with LabVIEW?
So on the handheld, we've only got 7 buttons. It's meant for things like explosives detection. So at that point they're in like full explosive suit, 4-layer gloves, fine motor control goes out the window. So it's all big buttons, so launching that and then trying to inspect it. We could have started to go down that route and use web services, but this just gave us a cleaner interface straight in without redeveloping everything. This is just an add-in that we can put in where we need it and where it gives us the most benefit.
What's the sort of crossover time in sort of development time? So at what point does it become useful for WebKit, and what point do you say just use the LabVIEW tools?
It's going to vary by your own personal usage of LabVIEW. I've done a fair amount with subpanels, so scaling those, handling events, things like that. Perfectly happy with. I was starting to push it. The rest of my team were going, "What are you doing?" And that was probably the point to have crossed over. Where you just start feeling uncomfortable in LabVIEW, have a look round. We found Jquery and these sort of accordion things. Almost the worst part is trying to find out what they call it. And it's like, oh, I want a vertical menu that just drops down when I click something. Oh, okay, that one's fairly simple, but the accordion thing, once we found out what it was called, it's like, oh, we want accordion code. there you go, copy that in, here's where you fill in the blanks, you had that up and running.
Yeah, it didn't take long at all to do that. Certainly better than a tree controlling that.
Yeah. No, it seems like it could be quite efficient, but the returns and stuff seem a bit like kind of a bit clunky. Is there no? There's definitely no better way to do it.
There are some of the toolkits that are out there that you can start to work with. There's one on the LabVIEW Tools Network for interfacing with HTML. We didn't use that because of the deployment costs that were going to be on it. Hoping to sell the little units in hundreds and then get smacked around the back of the head from the product manager. So free is always better as far as he's concerned.
Yeah, it's a pity that the development of the WebKit is kind of frozen at about 2013 or something. I don't think there's been a new version since then. So any bugs that are in there, you're just stuck with them. So you do have to end up working around things. Now there may be a better way around them.
Yeah.
We just found a workaround and it was simple enough, so we went with it really.
Yeah.
Again, it's a bit, although the web people have used the WebKit without LabVIEW for other. You know, we're kind of in a bit of a niche anyway. So although the HTML, the CSS stuff is all well known, actually using the .NET with the WebKit is slightly niche.
Yeah, I mean going on, we're looking at it and we think we can develop more of the interfaces, but it means that we have to provide an interface and say, yeah, we're going to want these buttons, and we're going to want to be able to call this bit and that bit. But I can then go, there you go, give that back to the UX and the UI design guys, go, make it pretty. It's just got to have this defined interface. So we're back much more into standard sort of software engineering practices of, there's your interface, you get that side, this is my interface, I get this side, off we go. And they can make it pretty and I don't have to recode it all in LabVIEW. Okay. Thank you very much.
Solid.
Did you look at which part? Which part?
I've not been working on
Yeah, I was going to say there's always a new breed of idiots.
Most girls are they're really good at finding some pretty weird things.
You need to employ them, they're good software testers.
We do.
See you, mate.